Hi everyone. So I looked into Kohn and his theories on student-directed learning and democratic classrooms. So Kohn was formerly a teacher at the high school and college level. He currently speaks and writes about human behavior, education, and parenting, and he's published many books on these topics. A popular one relating to classroom management is Beyond Discipline: From Compliance to Community, that was originally published in 1996. His ideas are in line with Vygotsky and Piaget. He's very outspoken and critical of the commonly used behaviorism strategies. Kohn also believes that most teachers rely too heavily on extrinsic motivation, and he urges schools to focus more on the intrinsic motivations of their students. He is very critical of many aspects of the current education system. He argues against the use of competition, standards, standardized testing, and homework. Kohn's classroom management theories are in line with a constructivist approach. He urges a constructivist classroom with student-centered learning and an emphasis on engaging lessons and activities. Kohn argues these classrooms should allow students the opportunity to construct their own learning and build on their knowledge. A quote that I pulled from Kohn is, "Social psychology has found the more you reward people for doing something, the more they tend to lose interest in whatever they had to do to get the reward." So he's saying rewards and consequences are not effective because they're not motivating students to learn. And he also argues that the grades and praise that are given reduces students' intrinsic motivation and desire to learn. He argues and states that this is a form of manipulation, that we're doing things to students rather than doing things with students. And instead, he urges teachers to focus on the content, community, and choice. So Kohn's theory stresses the importance of the question, has the child been given something to do worth learning? He states that a child or student may be off task because they're not given something that is worthwhile to do. And if the content is engaging enough, classroom management will increase because this chance of misbehavior is reduced because the students are engaged in what they're learning. So an example is if Kohn used is if students are endlessly filling in blanks, then of course you're going to have to bribe them with a reward to continue doing mindless worksheets. If his idea on learning communities, so his quote, "If children feel safe, they can take risks, ask questions, make mistakes, learn to trust, share their feelings, and grow." I included this because it really just explains and sums up the idea of a learning community. An ideal classroom, in Kohn's eyes, emphasizes cooperation. Students should have many opportunities to participate in cooperative learning. And teachers must work towards developing a sense of community. It's not something that will just happen, it needs to be developed and grown. The teacher must show students that they respect them and create an environment where all students feel safe and welcomed. Kohn also stresses the importance of students feeling like they're able to ask for help. And the classroom environment should be safe and comforting so students come to care about each other, where they learn skills to be kind and share instead of being manipulated to do so. Kohn's democratic and student-directed learning theory emphasizes the importance of classroom meetings. These meetings are a place for sharing, deciding, planning, and reflecting. And he suggests that classroom meetings provide social and ethical benefits. They foster intellectual development and increase students' motivation to lead, and emphasizes a classroom community. Sharing in classroom meetings, you can talk about your weekend and share what happened and what the students did. And these meetings, it's really up to the students to share. They should never be forced because you want to reinforce that safe space and community-based environment. Deciding during a classroom meeting could look like students and teachers deciding on desk arrangements or what goes on the walls, and it's really just about students being a part of the decisions. Planning, again, teachers can use classroom meetings to include students in the planning, also in reflecting as well, and just really reflecting with your students on what type of place the classroom should be. And then we have choice. Again, Kohn is saying that if you include these, misbehavior will be reduced, and it's really about preventing misbehavior before it arises. Students should be provided with choice in academic and social or behavioral decisions. Kohn's democratic and student-directed learning stresses the importance choice has on well-being, behavior and values, academic achievement, teachers, and intrinsic values. So for well-being, students benefit from feeling a sense of control in their lives. Just by giving them a little bit of choice, it gives them some autonomy, and everyone really benefits from feeling like they have control in their own decisions. The effects on behavior and values connects to the quote that I included right here from Alfie Kohn. Children learn how to make good decisions by making decisions, not by following directions. He's arguing with this statement that if we want students to be responsible for their behavior, then they first have to be given responsibility. They have to have opportunities to make decisions on how they will behave, or instead of being told, which will help them learn how to behave and take responsibility for that behavior. It increases in academic achievement. And teaching can become more interesting because they are actively collaborating with their students. And it also helps intrinsic values because the students have autonomy and they're not being told, they have choice. So it's really helpful for that intrinsic motivation. The 4 areas students can make academic decisions include what, how well, and why they learn. Students should have control and responsibility in their learning while the teacher acts as a facilitator. Kohn also argues that a strict curriculum and homework are counterintuitive to students' needs. So, current research supports the ideas that Kohn presents in his theory. I found one study by Patel 2010. Students were randomly assigned to receive a choice between homework options or to be assigned an option for all homework. The results indicated that when students were offered a choice of homework, they reported higher intrinsic motivation to do their homework, felt more competent regarding the homework, and performed better on the unit tests compared to when they were not provided with choice. Having choices increased homework completion rates compared when there was no choices given. So having choice in classroom, Alfie Kohn really stresses that homework is not beneficial, but it's not always practical to completely get rid of homework depending on your district or the classroom that you are teaching in. So instead of worrying about, completely getting rid of homework, this is a more manageable and realistic approach that teachers can take. Just really giving students choice between 2 different worksheets, or maybe they have a set of 6 questions and they get a choice in what 3 to answer or what 2 to answer. Because, studies do show that there are benefits in having this choice. Another study that enforces Kohn's ideas was done by Grant and Davis, 2012. So Grant and Davis conducted a study in a first grade classroom because they wanted to implement classroom meetings and really see what the benefits were. So they agree that morning and class meetings support students' development of effective social skills and positive relationships in the classroom. The benefits include improved conflict solving strategies, positive interactions among students, and a more peaceful classroom. The students become better communicators and develop kinder demeanors to children and adults. And these meetings create a greater sense of community in the classroom and help build mutual respect and improved relationships among the students and the teacher. So these classroom meetings are just very beneficial for the teacher and the student, really building that classroom community, reinforcing what Kohn said about how if you do have a classroom learning community, misbehavior will be reduced and classroom management will be increased because the students feel a sense of community. They respect one another and respect the teacher, so you will not have to use discipline as much. So in conclusion, Alfie Kohn follows a constructivist belief. He argues that problems in the classroom are not always the fault of the student who does not listen, that we need to look closer at what the students were asked to do through content, community, and choice. So are they being asked to mindlessly fill in the blanks or complete another set of worksheets? Because again, as I mentioned, and how Kohn phrases it, is that of course with endless fill in the blanks, you're going to have to bribe your students with a reward. And the importance of community, learning community where all students feel safe, respected, and cared for. And then offering choice where they have autonomy and some independence really does a lot for their internal and intrinsic motivations. And again, his argument is that you will not need rewards, bribes, punishments, or consequences because you are preventing misbehavior and preventing behavioral problems when you are focusing on these three aspects of your classroom. He argues that as teachers, we want and we need more than compliance in the classroom, that when students are really complying through those rewards and consequences, they're not given the opportunity to develop social emotional skills. And that is where his criticism of like behaviorism and rewards and consequences comes from. And teachers should include students in creating a classroom community. Again, if we want students to be responsible for their behavior, we need to first give them responsibility. And as I kind of briefly mentioned, it's not, Kohn is very critical of standardized testing and homework, and it's really not always possible for teachers to get rid of those, especially standardized tests. So the studies that I talked about in the previous slide just really are more practical ways for teachers to implement some of this. Like, for example, just offering choice in homework assignments produces benefits. And again, it is more realistic. These are my references. I thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, just please let me know.